Check it out. This video is about Angela Knight, who had once appeared on the Fresh and Fit podcast as a panel member, and why she's attacking an individual named Eric via a GoFundMe post. For those who don't know, Angela had once collaborated with Eric to do a podcast called The Unfiltered Podcast, but as of this video, she has since then split up from Eric as well as the rest of the team from The Unfiltered Podcast. In this video, I'm going to go over Angela Knight's GoFundMe post and give my bit of analysis. But before I proceed further, I'm going to have to give a little warning, especially to my English teachers, English majors who may be watching this video, because one warning, this GoFundMe post has a lot of grammar errors, run-on sentences, so this post might give you a little bit of PTSD. Pause. Plus, there are some characters you should recognize in this GoFundMe post, and I'll translate this for you. If you see the name Ethan, that is Eric from the Unfiltered Podcast, formerly of Fresh and Fit. If you see the name Andy, that's Anwar, who is now part of the Unfiltered Podcast, who was also formerly of the Fresh and Fit Podcast. If you say the name Benny, that individual is Basil, who is currently part of the Unfiltered Podcast. So there are 3 Unfiltered Podcast members who are mentioned in this GoFundMe post. They are Eric, aka Ethan, Anwar, aka Andy, Basil, aka Benny, who are part of the Unfiltered Podcast. And here's the thing. I know this GoFundMe is asking for $5,000 to buy new equipment for a podcast, but do you really need $5,000 to start a podcast? That seems a little bit much. Maybe the money's going towards something else besides the podcast. But what do I know? I'm not the person who was a former host of, you see, this podcast named Pink Potty, because I'm not really about that toilet time. Anyways, let's get into the analysis. So this GoFundMe is definitely featured on Angela Knight's Instagram. I'm not going to read word for word. This is something that I think you should be able to read if you passed high school or GED. Just notice there's a lot of grammar issues, a lot of problems. As said previously, I'm going to give my Cliff's Notes, bullet point analysis. So in this paragraph, she starts off with, I used character names in this bio because they are legal happy. Who is they? What do you mean by they? She's talking about Unfiltered Podcast team. That's the they. Okay, so she starts off that she worked her whole life in a family nail salon. I don't care if it's a family nail salon. All y'all nail salons overcharge, and that's a fact. I hope that's not a trend, but it's been a thing, overcharge of services. So she's saying that she did a podcast, I think it was Pink Potty, in Tampa, Florida. She felt it was a slow success. She got basically, okay, I can do this podcast thing, right? I can do this podcast thing. It might be my thing, right? And then Eric from Unfiltered Podcast, at the time he was working for Fresh and Fit, approached Angela saying, hey, maybe you and me, we can do a little podcast together. And she was motivated, Angela, to do it because once she had the blessing from her family, her boyfriend saying, hey, seize the opportunity. This might be a good thing. And what she did was, after filming 6 episodes in Tampa, I assumed this Pink Potty, her own podcast in Tampa, and she went to Miami with all her equipment. Now, the next paragraph is when things get a little juicy, like the juicy fruit gum. So here, she gets to Miami. She's finding out Eric from Unfiltered has a lot of personal problems, drama, doing some party. That's the Fresh and Fit million subscriber party. If you're going to be there, it's going to be a blast. I feel it. And there's problems with the studio because of permit issues. We'll ask why Angela went to business with Eric. She's accusing of Eric of being a snake oil salesman. He's saying all this drama happened after she moved in Miami and he was hiding it. And he was saying things that really convinced her to believe in the dream, believe in the plan. One of the things that Eric did was he explained to her about how he had lost someone who was close to him in his childhood, and that resonated with her because Angela lost her brother back in 2010. And somehow he convinced her. Remember, I believe Eric in his previous episodes in the Unfiltered Podcast saying he did sales. So he was really able to convince her that all Eric needed was for Angela to believe in Eric for the goal to achieve. And that's sales 101. Shout out to Eric, Because in any sales position, right, it doesn't matter what you're selling, insurance, maybe you're trying to sell a product, maybe a tech product, maybe non-tech product, MLM, maybe you're trying to sell a dream. You got to be able to relate to someone at a personal level. You know, for example, you don't want to go in sales cold where it's like, hey, I'm knocking your door. You want to buy. No one's going to talk to you. What you want to do is you want to relate to someone at a personal level. Be like, hey, Johnny, you got a kid, right? You got like a daughter right there? Oh, yeah. I got a son. He goes to this high school. Oh, you go to the high school too? Yeah. It's a great high school. Or you want to relate maybe at a sports level. If that person maybe is a baseball fan saying, oh man, I love that baseball team too. My grandfather used to play for that baseball team. So once you have that connection at a personal level, you want to gradually slip in saying, hey, I really like talking to you, and, I'm going to get your son that voucher at the baseball team, but could you help me with a little something? I think you could really look good in that new car. I know you're driving that Toyota, but maybe you want to upgrade to a Lexus. It's going to make you look good as well as make your family look good and make something that your son is going to be proud of you. So that's how you ease in sales, right? You want to relate to someone at a personal level, and then you want to ease into the sale, right? You never want to go cold, right? That's cold calling that usually doesn't work, except it works by volume. But if you want to get personal, you want to get really have that connection with someone, have that rapport with someone. So in this case, Eric used his sales skills to really be able to get Angela on his side by relating on something at a personal level and easing it, and that's how he really convinced her. Now going to the next paragraph, she says she only kept her head down and worked. I mean, you can't just keep your head down and work. You got to use your head sometimes, right? You got to be aware, step outside of the process and see what's going on. She said the offer was only working with Eric and her. Okay, so if that's the offer, then if there's changes to the offer, you got to step out, right? As soon as you see a violation, I think in the RP, they say you got to maintain frame, right? If the offer was only Angela and Eric, Angela, I guess if you saw something change, you got to step out, maintain your frame, and step away from the situation. Looks like she brought her equipment there. So I guess if she's no longer in the podcast, she should be getting back her equipment, or at least payment equal was what the equipment was worth, right? I think that's only fair. So this part of the paragraph, I think it's spicy. Apparently, according to Angela, Myron actually fired, right? This is according to Angela. Could be true or not true. Fired Eric for essentially starting this unfiltered podcast. When Myron found out, all right, hasta la vista. But apparently, initially, Eric told Angela that Eric got the blessing. Apparently wasn't the case, according to Angela. And Angela is saying being Asian, she has underlying pressure to always finish what she started. So she didn't, when she saw red flags, she didn't basically turn back to Tampa. She just kept going. First of all, don't place all of us in the same bucket, right? Don't say being Asian, I truly have this underlying pressure. No, being Angela, you have this underlying pressure. Don't place the rest of us in your bucket. If I'm in this situation, I feel something's wrong, I'm dipping out. I'm a Dippin' Dots type of dude, all right? So I don't like the fact that you're trying to say, oh, because you're Asian, you're doing this. No, say because you are Angela, you decided to do this. You got to take accountability, okay? I don't know what type of Asian may be doing this, maybe the Asians you know, but I know Asians who, as soon as they feel a little pressure, they step out. If I'm in this situation and I agree to do X, Y, and Z, and I start seeing A, B, C, D, E, all sorts of spaghetti soup type action, I'm getting out. Right? I'm getting out. And that's just the way it is. So don't try to say being Asian, just say being Angela. Don't place all of us in that category. Going here, you might need to bring a tissue box because I'm feeling a lot of people going down bad. Apparently she's been paying maybe around $2,300 to live in an Airbnb. Apparently Eric has been taking care of Anwar, the producer of the Unfiltered podcast. A lot of down bad situations. Apparently, Eric spent $30K to get his side of the studio. Whoa, that's a lot of money. Although it does coincide, there was a rumor out there. I don't know if it's true. There was a guy named Michael Trillsteen. I think he was on the Fresh and Fit podcast a few times, right? He was the guy with, I got two ladies with me, something like that. Allegedly, and this could be wrong, Michael Trillsteen stated that he gave around 31 or 30K to Eric right now, the Unfiltered podcast, formerly Fresh to Fit, so that Michael Trillsteen and Eric could do their own podcast together. the 30K, the talk was maybe we could go get like a penthouse and then do the podcast, the Michael Trillsteen and Eric podcast. But allegedly through Trillsteen, he gave the 30K to Eric, and Eric just took the money. If I were Eric, I'll take the money too, because you have to satisfy the Miami stereotype. What is Miami known for? Scammers, finesse, people faking it. So if you want to add to the stereotype of Miami, I think Eric definitely added to it, and I ain't got no problems with that, right? It's a dog eat dog world. So this part of the paragraph is when things really take a turn for the worse. Essentially, at this point, Angela is seeing Eric as maybe not as of a nice guy who she thought he was. She didn't like the situation that it was constantly a 3-on-1. And who's the 3-on-1, right? It was Eric, that's the he. Who's the two other? Anwar, Basil, the guy with the cool shades. She didn't like the fact that in this so-called partnership where she thought it was just Eric and her, right? That's a 1-on-1 partnership. It was now becoming a 4-person partnership, and it always became like a 3-on-1. And that's definitely stressful. I understand, because if you're on the receiving end, it doesn't seem fair. She also didn't like the fact that they wanted to shoot more days of the week. She didn't want to do it, so that's like a disconnect. She also told Eric to improve his vocabulary. But here's the thing, reading to this essay, she needs to improve her writing skills. I'm just saying, it seems like I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She probably typed this whole thing up on her phone. So I get it, you're trying to rush through. But if you type this on a desktop, laptop, computer, you gotta go through high school English again. I'm just saying, just keeping it 100. Now here's when things get spicy. We're about to reach the climax of the situation. Pause. Essentially, what was happening was that Angela did not co-sign a lot of these hiring decisions. She didn't like the fact, and I believe Benny, right? Benny is this 20-year-old marketing strategist, the guy with the shades. I kind of like Benny, because Benny is telling it like it is from a viewer perspective, in my opinion. Angela's saying she wants organic numbers. I mean, a lot of things are artificial nowadays. What is really organic? Benny wanted drama. Hell yeah, I want drama. I want to see crazy content. I'm one of the audience members who want to see crazy stuff. I'll be honest. I'm going to keep it a stack. I want to see conflict. So there was a lot of like disagreements created prospectively. Apparently she kept arguing with Ethan, who is Eric, right? She's switching the names Eric and Ethan back and forth. She told him that she has argued with Eric more than she has argued with her boyfriend. Bars. I don't know what she was trying to say over there, but bars. So if you reach down to this part of the paragraph, it's just basically a lot back and forth. In an essence, Angela Knight and Eric, they just don't agree on a lot of things like scheduling, directions, this or that. One thing I didn't like about it, and this is an accusation by Angela, that apparently Eric was recording conversations between Eric and Angela and sending it to Eric's sister. Man, that's bad. That's like, ay, Dios mío, está muy malo, muchacho. No bien. Now, if you scroll to almost to the end of this post, this is when things get a bit real. They're going a lot of back and forth. The synopsis is Angela's trying to get her equipment worth $5,000 worth back from them. I guess somehow she's not able to get all the equipment. You look at like 70% of her equipment, so she's not satisfied, right? Moral of the story is, if what Angela's saying is true, if she brought in the equipment for your partnership and she's no longer part of it, I think it's only fair she gets back her equipment, or at least $5,000 if that's what it was worth, right? Because I think it's fair from a moral perspective. But from Eric's perspective, if I were to be a scumbag, I need to do what I can, right? You got to get it how you live it. So that's where I'm looking from a moral perspective, but I'm also looking from let's say I'm on side B perspective, right? Apparently what happened was also allegedly that I think there was a police report filed. Look at the Unfiltered podcast. I do believe they did file a restraining order to prevent Angela back in the place. Since you're no longer part of the team, you can't get back in the studio, something like that. So basically a lot of super drama going on. I don't know who's right, but we got to get this into an animation. I want to see cartoon action. Draw a little bit of that cartoon stuff, right? Like if you ever seen the channel Vlad TV, you can make cartoon versions of events. I want to see some cartoons because this could be some good animation. So if you reach to this part of the essay, basically she's stating that Ethan or Eric, right? They are the same person. is smearing her reputation. A lot of crazy stuff going after the fallout from her splitting from the podcast, Unfiltered Podcast, officially. She accuses Eric of, he never intended to make me a partner. Eric was using me. And then it's the final paragraph. She didn't want to go back to her family in Tampa because this situation didn't involve them. Because why would it, right? Why would your family be involved in the podcast? This seemed to be something between yourself, Angela, Eric, and others. And I guess she was trying to bottle her emotions. I think, I'm not a psychologist, but we all have emotions, and it's definitely proven that you can't really bottle them. You have to confront them. So what some people do is they have a feeling circle. So they try to identify their feelings. You can't bottle them. You can't just use your feelings as the nexus to make decisions, but you have to confront your feelings. You have to recognize how you're feeling it and then go on from there, right? You can't just ignore it, but you have to acknowledge your feelings. And she's saying that she is looking to start again and just thankful to her TikTok followers, her friend Kathy, and using this, I guess, GoFundMe to raise the $5,000 and maybe go back in the podcast game, maybe ideally back in Miami. In conclusion, if you want to donate to Angela Knight's GoFundMe, this is the one it looks like. It's definitely on the link tree on her Instagram page. Looks like she's planning to do a thing called the Miami Rice Podcast. So go check it out if you're interested in it. I might tune in, I might not. It's also true about the 1% of Asians living in Miami, because if you see somebody who is of Asian descent in Miami, most likely he or she is a tourist. It's not really a big population, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, put a like and subscribe. Put a comment below if you got something to say about it. I'll see y'all next time.